One of the hardest things to do in the Android market is to choose what device you want because there are just so many different choices. Luckily, Google has got your back because they've created a line of devices that really sits above the rest, and they're called the Nexus. And I'll show you why they're the best. Because it's Joshua Vergara from Android Authority. What's going on, everybody? And here I am to bring you 10 again about why you should choose the Nexus. As the Nexus line is supposed to be the standard for all other Android devices, we're going to be taking a look at some key aspects, and we're going to come out swinging with hardware and performance. If the current crop of Nexus devices is any indication, all of the future Google official devices will probably blow away the rest of the competition. Take for example the Nexus 4. Sporting a very fast quad-core Snapdragon S4 Pro processor, this phone packs a wallop, and even with 2GB of RAM, these are specifications that a lot of phones out on the market today can only dream of having. As such, the Nexus 4 is typically at the top of the food chain in whatever benchmark tests you may run on it, and for good reason. It really is just that powerful of a phone. And then in the mid-range, you have the Nexus 7. As a smaller tablet, the Nexus 7 didn't necessarily have the best specs out there of any device, but it did sport the NVIDIA Tegra 3 processor, which still holds up today. Even after the long time after the Nexus 7 was released, it is still able to handle pretty much anything that I was able to throw at it. And that's true for a lot of users out there. It is still a fan favorite among a lot of users. But the powerhouse of the Nexus family is definitely the 10-inch tablet, the Nexus 10. Sporting a 10-inch screen at 2560 by 1600 resolution and 300 ppi, it was obvious that the specifications underneath needed to be amazing. And they truly are. A 1.7 GHz dual-core Exynos processor is backed by an Adreno 320 graphics processor to make this the fastest tablet on the market. And that doesn't necessarily just mean Android, that means all tablets in general. Ultimately, all of the Nexus devices come with a load of power. And usually, wouldn't that come at a pretty hefty price? Well, luckily, Google has got your back on that as well because all of these devices happen to be very affordable. What you're seeing on the Nexus 4 right now is the price of the 16GB version. $349 might still sound like a lot, but consider that a lot of phones out there right now have lesser specs but still come in at $500 or $600 unlocked. On the other hand, the Nexus 7 still comes in at $199, which is a great price for a tablet as versatile and as powerful as it. It is still one of the most affordable and best bang for your buck tablets on the market today. And finally, you have the Nexus 10, which comes in at a very competitive $399. Given its specifications and the fact that the iPad and other Android competitors are up to $100 or more more expensive than the Nexus 10, it really is a price you can't beat. And with all of the different features that are available on each of these devices, the prices that they come in at are all really hard to deny. That price will seem like even more of a bargain when you consider not just the hardware and the performance, but the software that it powers. And as a Nexus user, you can rest assured that your devices will always be updated with the latest version of Android. So tell me, what do all of these devices have in common? Well, it's a pretty simple answer. All of them sport operating systems that are now out of date. Google's already released the latest version of Jelly Bean 4.2.1, and what devices get to run this new OS? Yeah, you guessed right, the Nexus devices. This reason alone is why a lot of users choose to invest in the Nexus, and it really is a hot button topic for a lot of people. When we're talking about any other device, there is always that group of people who want to know what version is on, and when they hear that it's not the most updated, it's usually a turnoff. With the Nexus, you don't have to worry about that. Your software is always going to be updated and you will have all of the latest features that Jelly Bean and in the future Key Lime Pie have to offer. But that's the great part about it because Android is really getting better and better. There once was a time when I wanted my Android device to have certain features that were only available if I either installed customization software, apps, or I even put custom ROMs on there after rooting the phones. Now, with the newest version of Android Jelly Bean, I feel like I don't have to do that anymore. I actually like Android just the way it is. And it's because of these features that you're seeing right now. Things like a expanded notification dropdown with access to all of your settings is something that used to be a dream in the past, but now it's a reality in the stock Android system. And then there's Google Now, which I said in my previous video that I really encourage everybody to start using it even more. Those cards just seem to know exactly what I'm looking for at the moment, and it's just a great way of looking at information, searching, and it's just a wonderful piece of technology underneath the already great Android experience. Of course, these translate very well into tablets, as you can see here. You can access the settings from the right side of the dropdown, and Google Now looks just as good on a tablet, as you can see here. Android Jelly Bean 4.2.1 is really a great example of just how much Android has matured. And that brings me to yet another great aspect of the Nexus line of devices, the dev community. Basically, if some of the software inside of your phone or tablet is, for whatever reason, something you don't like, there are ways of changing it to make it even better. And that was done by a group of developers who are pretty much users just like yourself. And they've created a community that really takes advantage of the fact that the Nexus line of devices is very easy to gain root access to. Now, I'm not going to get into the whole process of rooting and flashing in this video, but essentially rooting a device means that you get full system level access to the root directory where all of the system files are, which allows you to take advantage of apps that require that root access, or to even install whole new operating systems that were built from the ground up by the devs in that community. Now, there might be a small degree of difficulty to this whole process. There might even be a little bit of danger, because if it fails for whatever reason, you have a fancy paperweight on your hands. But with the right amount of research and the backing of a community that is honestly really helpful and developers who have made the process easy, you could be rooting and flashing your Nexus device as well. This next reason to choose the Nexus focuses on the 4 and the fact that it is unlocked. Now, what exactly does unlocked mean? Well, we can illustrate that by looking at the box. What do you get when you buy a Nexus 4? Well, you get the box and everything inside of it. And that's kind of the beauty of it. You own that phone when you buy it. For only $299 compared to $500 and $600 for other unlocked phones out there, you get to have the Nexus 4, and it's not shackled by any 2-year contracts, even 1-year contracts, and it's not even shackled by the kinds of plans you would need to get on those contracts. Essentially, you can find the GSM carrier that you want with the services that you want, and once you get that prepaid or monthly plan set up, you just get the SIM card, pop it into the Nexus 4, and it's ready to go. And then you power up your device for the first time. And what do you see on your home screens? A bunch of free stuff. That's another great thing about the Nexus line. Let's take the Nexus 10 for example. The first time I booted it up, these widgets are right there. And in these widgets, they're not just listing things that you can have, they're listing things that you already have. Because Google, with every new device, gives you a number of different things already installed and already available in your Play account that you can have fun with. From the get-go, Google wants you to have fun with your device and see its capabilities, like the Nexus 10 playing Planet Earth. Or if that's not your style, then you can go for Transformers Dark of the Moon, which originally came with my Nexus 7. There's all this free stuff, and who says no to free stuff? Now this one's a little bit more tablet-centric, and it's the multi-user support. The newest version of Jelly Bean brought in the new feature of adding multiple users to the same device. Now, if you are the sole owner and user of your particular device, let's say the Nexus 7 or the Nexus 10, then this probably isn't the most practical feature. However, there are plenty of situations that I can see this being very handy. For example, if you're a parent and you have some kids and they would like to use the tablet as well, maybe you don't want them getting into the work that you've been doing or any of the files that you have, so you create a new user for them. And what you're greeted with is a setup screen so that they can create their own account on the same device. And once they get past that setup, what they're greeted with is a screen that looks just like the one that you saw when you first powered on the device. It is essentially a clean slate that the next user is able to pretty much customize to their delight. They also get their own set of apps, and they can install their own apps in order to make the experience on that particular user quintessentially for them. And it's kind of a great way of sort of making one device very easy to use for, let's say, a small family. And it's just a really nice feature to have on the Nexus 7 and the Nexus 10. It's also a very easy feature to navigate, because if you want to go back to your user, simply click the user icon in the notification drop-down settings, and you'll be brought back to the lock screen where you can select your account And when it changes the wallpaper to show that it is your account, you can just go through the lock screen and jump right back in. Here's one that I feel people forget sometimes. Nexus devices don't come with bloatware. Take a look at these devices again. Not only is their software out of date, but they also come with, especially if shackled to another phone carrier, they come with a lot of useless apps. Like NFL apps and you don't watch football, or carrier-specific ringtone apps. I mean, who uses those? On a Nexus device, what you need is what's included. Aside from the free content that Google gives you, which really doesn't even get in the way anyway, you're given a blank slate. You're free to do with your phone exactly anything that you want. Install the apps that you want. All the clutter that the phone company's apps would have taken up is free. For you to clutter it up with your own apps, obviously, but at least that was all on you. And finally, we put together all of our reasons to get the final one, and that's freedom. Because that is what having a Nexus is all about. Here we have 3 different devices, all competitively priced, with wonderful specifications and killer performance, and the promise of updated software for at least the foreseeable future. Right now, they have software that no other competitor has yet. If you have a Nexus 4, you have the freedom of picking a carrier, anyone that you want. If you have a Nexus 7, you have portability, flexibility that most tablets don't have. And when you have the Nexus 10, you have a powerhouse of a tablet that will remain so for quite a while. When you become a Nexus user, you open up a world of possibilities that might be akin to those found in other Android devices, but I guarantee you aren't nearly as great in number, or more importantly, as great in quality as that found in the Nexus. When you choose the Nexus, you choose value, performance, and flexibility, but just as much as all those qualities, you choose freedom. Let us know what you think in the comments below, and for the written version of this edition of 10 Again, head on over to androidauthority.com, your source for all things Android.